So Rachel, welcome to the Disenfranchised. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Ed. You well?
Yeah, I'm very good. Thank you very much. Like
Good.
I just said, the sunshine is making everything great today. So yeah, and the recent COVID news as well. That's fantastic and making it for a really positive day. And how about you? How are you coping with it all?
Yeah, it's been tricky because of the sector that we're in. We've been closed down, so we're holding out now to the April 12th. That's our next milestone. So yeah, we're at least we can start planning now and moving forward, which is good things.
Yeah,
Good news.
excellent. Well, I'm probably going to have some questions on that in a little while, but like I do with everyone, I want to ask you, what was your first job to kick us off?
Oh, my very first job was a Saturday job in a newsagent's, which it's privately owned, it wasn't part of a chain, and it grew rapidly. And it, unfortunately for me, started stocking particularly nice chocolates. And unfortunately, I was put on that chocolate counter to sell chocolates, and I can put my hand up and say that I tasted as many as I sold. The profit margin will have been very small on that part of the store, but it was good fun. It's a great way to learn loads of different skills.
Excellent. So that's completely different to what you're doing today, obviously.
Yeah, I don't eat anywhere near as much chocolate today.
Excellent. And I'm interested to find out people's stories and how they got to where they are today. So your operations director for Swimtime, obviously. So how do you get from trying chocolates every day, every day you're at work, through to being a director of Swimtime? What was kind of your first kind of full-time job, and how did that progress to where you are today?
Yeah. My first full-time job was in financial services. And it was back in the day when financial services salespeople, which I was, were a bit like UPVC window salespeople. That was how it was perceived. So it was a really harsh environment. You had to do lots of exams. So I had to be very qualified in financial services because you were selling savings policies, life assurance policies, pensions. And it was it was a very male dominated environment, and it involved doing a lot of cold calling, which was the thing I hated the most. And back in those days, I'll share a little snippet with you, and I kid you not, this is the truth, it would never happen nowadays. On a Thursday night, which was our main cold calling night, they would get us all into a room, take away all the table and chairs, just give us a phone, and they would sellotape the receiver
No way.
to your hand. And you literally were given a phone book and you worked your way through the phone book with this receiver. So you dialed, and you could never put this down until you hit your quota. So
I've
it was
heard stories like that, but I've never met anyone who went through that. I've experienced for cold calling, you have to stand up until you make a sale or book an appointment or something like this. I've been in that environment, but never sellotaping the phone to your hands.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
How long
it
did
was
you do it for?
horrible. Oh gosh. Well, to be honest, at that level, I quickly worked out that if you were a manager, a unit manager, you didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
So I made sure I quickly became a unit manager. So at a very young age, I had a team of three people with me, and they did all the cold calling. I just went out and did the sales side of it. So because that aspect I really liked, and I mean, and helping people prepare for the future, the planning, and make sure they've got the right vehicles in place. That was really interesting. But oh my goodness, cold calling, so not me. So not me. I'm not designed for that.
The bit that you were doing then in the end, that's the consultative bit, right? And that's what a lot
Yeah.
of people strive to be when they're looking to be consultants. I've been speaking to a lot of people over the last few years that yeah, they just want to skip the cold calling part and go right into the meetings and sitting down and solving
Yeah,
problems, which is
yeah.
fun. But yeah, so do you think that's brought that gave you an experience that you've learned and can use in your role today though?
Yeah, oh, massively. I mean, I am a nightmare to be sold to. If anybody tries to sell me anything, I am an utter nightmare. But in terms of my skill set, I actually think it's made me more appreciative of the softer sales process. And also that if somebody doesn't want to buy something, there's absolutely no point whatsoever forcing their hand. So likening that to franchising, I always say to potential franchisees, yeah, I'm not here to sell you the franchise. I'm here to help you make the decision as to whether or not this franchise is a right franchise for you. And we explore that together. And I think the sales skills I learned were more about how to question and how to get people to open up, understand their wants and desires, and then help them meet those needs. And I think that's where it really helped me.
Yeah, definitely. It's two ears and one mouth. I say it all the time. I absolutely love that one because you should use them in that proportion, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
especially in sales. I'm gonna share a story that anyone who's spoken to me about sales has probably heard 100 times already, but I'm going to share it because I don't
right.
think I've shared it on the podcast yet. So I spoke to a mobile phone salesperson years ago. I was in a pub garden, right, and we were just talking about sales techniques, and that sounds pretty boring, doesn't it? Really, for a Friday night. But he said to me, yeah, I'm one of the top salespeople there, and blah 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 blah. I said, okay, well, take me through your sales process then. Sell me a phone. And he started off great. He was asking me questions. What sort of phone are you looking for? What do you want it to do? How much data? And I'd gone through my answers. And at this time, it was before the kind of the touch screens were on all of the phones. So there were still some
Yeah,
phones with buttons. And I said to him, I want a phone with buttons. I want it to play my music. And that's about it, really. Do a few text messages. And he went, okay, excellent, excellent. I've got this fantastic new iPhone for you that has got 1 gigabyte of data. It's got this, it's that, it's touchscreen, it's this, it's percent, this is kind of inchage on the screen. And I was like, didn't listen to me, did you? One bit. You've lost me as a customer. And, and I just think it's unbelievable that there are people out there that, do start down that process really well, but in the end get it
yeah,
completely wrong. I
yeah.
didn't want to be sold to. I wanted somebody to listen and provide me with the right thing.
Absolutely. And customers nowadays are so in tune with that. They have no time, they have no patience. They want you to really invest time in understanding their wants and needs. And that's a great example. Great example of not listening, not actively listening.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned kind of the helping people find franchising then. So or brands within a franchising model. So how did you find the franchising world?
How did I find it initially?
Yeah.
I After a long career in financial services, doing many different roles, I then took time out to have a family. And after a year, if not less than that, of trying to be a stay-at-home mum, which I really struggled with, just because I'm so used to spinning lots of different plates. And I set up an online business with a friend, an online art gallery, and at the same time, I set up my own consultancy. And one of my earliest clients in the consultancy said to me one day, we think we can franchise this model. And I was like, great, yeah, let's go for it. And when I started looking into it, I literally went on a journey with them. And I had to learn very, very quickly. And it was a great experience. I just thought, this makes so much sense. I
Yeah.
mean, as a franchisee, you get to own your own business. As a franchisor, great way of growing your business because you don't have to invest your money. The franchisees invest theirs, and that's how you get the brand out there and get the growth. And then from a franchisee perspective, you're not on your own. You've got loads of support. You've got a network of people to fall back on. You're buying a proven model. So somebody else has made all the mistakes and spent all the money trying to fix things. You don't have any of that. You just almost like pick up the business in a box, use your skill set, and off you go. And that was my first exposure. That was about 15 years ago. And then I've worked with various franchise businesses along the life cycle of a business, from helping people franchise it initially through to working with franchise businesses where they're maybe plateaued and they need growth, to then helping a franchisor exit, prepare for exit. So yeah, I've experienced all of the life cycle, and I'm still as passionate as ever about franchising. I think it's an absolutely great sector to be in. It's so supportive and unique in its own way.
Yeah, that's great to hear. But what was your thoughts of franchising before your business became a franchise?
It was basic. I think it's like everybody else, your McDonald's. There were brands that you recognised as being franchise brands, but I don't think I understood at that time what franchising really meant and what the value was. And I think until you get into it, you can't see it. I think for me, because I'd come from an employed position, then I'd set up my own company and I set up my own consultancy. I'd got over that fear of not having a salary coming in. I'd made that leap. So I've got a real appreciation of what it's like to buy into a franchise, particularly for those people that are coming from a previously employed position and maybe they might have found themselves redundant now, or they've just decided that they want a complete change in career. So I can help them in that journey, and I've got a good insight as to some of the barriers that they might come across, that a lot of the barriers that they will put up themselves, because it is fearful, making that massive leap. Whatever way you look at it, it's fearful.
So I think that people that want to get out of employment, they think they always need this big idea, right?
Yeah.
and they sit there thinking, how can I design this product or design this business that is going to take off immediately and make me loads of money from day one? Yeah. The reality is it doesn't exist. That pretty much no business out there has just exploded from the first kind of idea and built out from there. So if people are thinking like that and are thinking they're going to get that immediate money, there's always going to be that fear of 6 months without an income. How do I overcome this? So how do you think people can kind of reason with themselves to be able to overcome that fear, to take that first step and that first leap? Because you're right, it's scary.
I think a lot of it comes down to finding the right franchise, so the right business that you're buying into with the right franchisor, because I think if you find the right franchisor, they will understand from you what it is you want to achieve, what's holding you back, and they'll help you overcome the hurdles. I think as a potential franchisee or someone considering it, you've got to be honest with yourself and accept that there will never be a right time. You will not wake up one day and go, right, this week is it. I'm making that change. I'm doing it. I'm going for it. That doesn't happen. The reality is that you're going to feel fearful all the way through, because your safety net of being employed and having that nice, regular and controlled environment has gone. But what you do get is stacks and stacks of freedom, and that feeling of being in control of your own destiny, knowing that when you get up and whatever efforts you put into your business, you are going to directly benefit from. You're not lining anybody else's pockets. You're not lining a shareholder's pocket. You're lining your pockets when you're working, and you get to choose how you structure your time and who you interact with. And you know, if I were in a regular 9-to-5 paid job, you know, chances are you and I wouldn't be talking, because we would never have met, because franchising wouldn't be part of our environment. We might meet through networking within our work roles, but it's never the same as when it's your baby, you own it. It's a very different feeling. I think helping people come to the understanding that it's good to feel fearful, but be very realistic about the hard work. And going back to your point about from an income point of view, you know, the realization that you're not going to have the same level of income. It's going to take time to build it up. So prepare for it now. Start stashing an extra bit away. Look at where you can cut costs in terms of your living costs. What can wait another 6 months or a year before you do it? And accept that you're going to reap the benefits further down the line. It's not about the here and now. It's about what you're working towards in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, is preparing financially for what, even if you're going to be self-employed with your own amazing idea, whatever it is, or for a franchise, it just is the sensible thing to do, isn't it? I think I've spoken to people over the years who aren't financially prepared and they're still trying to plow ahead, and you're like, it's not a good idea, because whatever you start, you're going to run out of money after 3 months, let's say. Then what are you going to do? You're going to go straight back to employment, because you need to find some way of earning money quickly. So make sure it's the right time, save the money, and I guess build a business plan ultimately, isn't it? So that you know what your coming years are going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to put a plan of some description in place. Otherwise, you could just meander for forever and a day. You don't know if all your efforts going into the right thing.
Yeah, that's it. So with business plans, in your experience, then do all franchisors help the potential franchisees with business plans, or is it down to the individual to create it themselves and hope they've got it right?
I think it varies. In my experience, it varies from franchise to franchise. The franchisors that don't ask you to produce one, or don't insist that a franchisee produces one from day one, I think they're exposing not only themselves, but they're exposing the potential franchisee's failure. And also, if you get a franchisee to work on a business plan with you, and there are varying levels of business plan, that's their buy-in. That it's about bringing the franchise, bringing the business concept to life, so that the franchisee can really relate and see exactly what actions they need to do to generate X. And if they don't do these things here, none of this is going to happen. And that's the reality of the business plan. There are lots of different ways of doing them, and I always choose with our franchisees just going for a simple formula. Don't make it complicated. Don't make it a document that's like yay thick and never gets read by anybody. It's got to be a living, breathing document, so that you can always go back to it to check where you are against your plan. How has it deviated? You know, COVID, great example. Most plans would never have encompassed that because we didn't know about it. So going forward, your sort of your worst case scenario that you plan for now has to include COVID. You know, what's the impact on my business if I'm in this situation again? And then that'll be your worst case. And then I would always ask our franchisees, you've got your worst case, your sort of your middle ground, and your best case scenario. And you're always aiming for the best case. accepting that your day-to-day is going to be somewhere in the middle. And what we want to avoid is getting it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's important to,
Yeah.
it's a good point, actually, having the 3 different business models. So you've got an idea of what it looks like in every scenario, right? Yeah, it's probably going to be in that middle point, but what ifs is always a good thing to think about.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about some people changing their life or their jobs completely, you know, away from their 9 to 5 as being something they want to do. How often does that actually happen, though, in your experience? You know, does somebody from a financial background ultimately go into a financial franchise or accounting franchise, or do you see that there's a lot of career changing taking place as people join in, you know, buy into a franchise?
I think there's 2 factors. I think actually, the main factor is where you are in your life cycle as you yourself. So a significant number of people, you know, within the population start off down one track. So you might qualify as a chartered accountant, for example. You know, if you start off on that route and then you wake up one day and you go, oh, I want something different, but I want to use my skills. They may look for a franchise that is an accountancy-based franchise, or they might have a secret passion for, I don't know, theatre. Let's say, you know, they're amateur dramatic enthusiasts. So they might be more interested, and as they grow mature in life and have more life experience, they might get to a point where they go, do you know what, I've always had a hankering to get on the stage and, you know, own a theatre school and have lots of little budding actors coming out of this. So they might then look for a franchise that offers a theatre school, you know, like, I don't know, Razzmatazz or something like that. And they could then follow that, but they'll be using their accountancy skills within that model. Or you'll have people that make complete changes. I mean, we had a franchisee who was in the very, I can't say the brand, but they were quite high up in a big entertainment brand and on a customer service role, and never knew anything about swimming or the leisure sector, and saw the franchise advertised, and they decided that this was somewhere where they could use their skills, and they liked the idea of working on something that gave people a life skill. So I think there's lots of different triggers for different people at various times, just throughout life.
Is it easy for them to make that transition, though? Because I imagine myself, okay, let's say I wanted to go and open up a rock school or something like that. I've seen the franchise brand out there. That's completely different to what I do in my day-to-day life, you know. So running a school or something like that is completely different to what I do. So yeah, how do franchises teach you how to be that person, or is it expected of you to become that person on your own, off your own back?
It's a mix. So during the recruitment process, a franchisor should be helping the potential franchisee understand their own strengths and weaknesses. So you doing what you do, you will have certain skill sets that you have developed. Even though you've got this hankering to be a rock and pop star of some description, okay? So you will have that desire to achieve it, but you'll have some core skills that are transferable. And a good franchisor will help a franchisee identify those key skills. So, for example, I interviewed a couple, and I quickly identified the fact that one of the partners who'd come from the armed forces was, not surprisingly, very structured, very organised, and very much the operational side of the business, whereas his partner, who was a qualified teacher, very experienced, incredibly passionate and knowledgeable about swimming in special needs sector. She was very much the front end of the business. So two of them combined skill set, brilliant. He knew nothing about the leisure sector whatsoever, but that didn't matter because his core skills, organisation, structure, people, processes, procedures, following and setting all of that up, absolutely critical for any business. So I think people should never be put off by going, I don't know how to do that, because there are always core skills that are absolutely transferable, no matter what you look at. And a good franchisor will help a potential franchisee eke those out and see them for what they are. And then also say to the potential franchisee, don't worry about the fact that you can't, that the financials aren't your strong point. We can teach you that. We've got specialists in our team who can teach you those skills that you've not got, but recognise that they have got other skills that we don't have to train them on.
Yeah, I guess that's part of the reason you buy into a franchise, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
If you could run a swim school or whatever it is from day one, then why buy into franchise? Do it yourself, right? If you've got all those skill sets and know how to do it. So yeah, I guess you're buying into that expertise and that knowledge, which will then teach and train you how to do it yourself to be able to build it up from there. So that's really good. So in terms of your brands that you've worked with, then you mentioned the first one, it was in consulting, but through to Swimtime now. Has there been other brands in between, and what have those been, and what type of franchises are they?
Gosh, believe it or not, I worked with a stem cell company who work with franchising.
Wow.
I think they still exist. We parted company a while back. Pediatric first aid. Worked with driving school franchise. I've worked with actually the best journey in terms of start to now is with Pink Spaghetti franchise. So they're a PA services. They're 25th hour kind of support for a business and for personal use as well. I worked with the founders, Vicky and Caroline, literally around a table. They'd set up and then gone, oh, we reckon we can franchise this. And go, yay, you really can. And I've worked with them on and off throughout their journey. And their business is now 10 years old, and they're now operating internationally as well. So it's great. I think the most value that I've always been able to bring in for previous clients is helping them when they get to a crossroads or a plateau and they're not sure about which way to go. I'm quite good at helping people explore the options. And because I've got such a broad background, experience in all sorts of things from sales, customer service, business development, acquisitions, software implementation, a whole breadth of stuff, and having run a couple of businesses myself from scratch, I've got quite a lot of experience and knowledge to share, and I really sort of enjoy helping business owners realise that there are different routes for doing things, really. So I've been very fortunate in that there's been a real mix of sectors and very varying stages of growth as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. See, before I found out more about the franchising industry, I didn't realize how many different sectors were covered. Like everybody else, it's the big brand names, but you don't realize, a stem cell franchise, I never knew. But I'm starting to see more and more crop up that are technology based, and it's website focused, and that I think opens up to a whole other audience, really. The millennial audience, I guess, in particular, that are used to that environment.
Yeah.
That's another
Yeah.
avenue that perhaps people aren't aware of, but is on the horizon, is available for people. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting.
It'll definitely grow and grow, because I mean, digital, anything digital, anything technology wise, it's changing at such a pace. And also, I think people are more prepared to work collaboratively nowadays as well, particularly when it comes to tech. And there's no reason why you can't franchise any tech model, really. You know, and even those agencies that purport themselves to be web design, they then usually go down a route of, you know, a true customer experience or a true digital experience, or they tend to end up going down one road or another. And again, if they want to then grow that, franchising is the easiest way of doing it. Capital wise, it's far less intensive. You don't have to go out and get investment at every touch and turn, which is what makes it so attractive.
I think as well, from the business owners or the franchisor's point of view as well, is you've got a team of highly motivated people, right? They've all got some skin in the game and a reason to make this whole thing a success. And that's and now I think about it, that's probably why you see so many brands on the high street are actually franchises, because they've got a team of motivated, you know, entrepreneurial spirited or minded people that are going out there and making the business as great as it is.
Yeah.
In
and
a
that for me as well, that's one of the huge attractions of franchising, because how many businesses do you, or how many sectors do you get to work in where you've got like-minded people who are very, very driven, very business focused, and all in it, sharing the same goal? I mean, it's really powerful if you get your network right and you invest in your network and you work with your network as a franchisor. Then you benefit, the franchisee benefits, the business model gets stronger and stronger. It's, you know, it's a win-win situation. Whereas in corporate life, it doesn't work like that. Rarely. It rarely works like that.
Yeah, obviously it can do in some scenarios, but you're right. I think it can be maybe win and little win, can't it? You know, the big corporate has the big win, and you get that little win as the employee, but it's not quite the same. It's more shared in a franchise model, I guess. So
it is.
A question I want to ask, well, actually there's a couple of questions I want to ask you then across your whole of your career, and I guess in particular in franchising. So the first one is, have there been any funny, weird, strange, or interesting stories that you've come across in the franchising world?
There's not in franchising, but one little anecdote from my own career, which could happen anywhere. When I'd made a move to a much larger insurance company, and after a while, I was invited to present to the board of directors. And I was really excited, because this was kind of, you know, you didn't get invited to talk to them. So I was quite excited, and I was taken upstairs because they all were on the top floor of this building. And I was put in this room, and I kid you not, a massive oak table, very, very traditional this business was. So a room full of gentlemen, directors, and asked to present. And I did this presentation on a topic, and one of the directors asked me a question. And as I started to answer, his head went like this, and he didn't move. And I thought, oh my God, he's died. Yeah. Oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? So I went to take a step forward. Nobody else seemed bothered at all. And as I stepped forward, this other gentleman leaned forward and put his hand across me, and he said, like that. So I thought, what's going on? So I coughed really loudly, at which point this guy just like lifts his head up and he goes, yes, very interesting, Rachel. And I carried on. And apparently, it turns out this guy suffered from narcolepsy. So
okay.
But no one had thought to tell me. That was the weirdest
That's brilliant.
thing.
That's so weird to be in that scenario, I imagine.
That was the weirdest thing ever, that was. Yeah, that's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me, but it wasn't in franchising. But
That's
yeah.
brilliant. I love that. I love that story. And well, the other one I was going to ask you is, what's been the most inspirational thing that you've experienced or seen across franchise? And let's narrow it down to franchising for this one.
Yeah, actually, it's one of our franchisees, and this goes to show how great franchising can be for people. So, young girl was in a relationship and became pregnant, ecstatic. They got engaged, but unfortunately, the relationship turned sour, and he got very violent with her, and they parted company literally just before the birth of her first child. So, that whole thing was very traumatic. But because she was part of a franchise network, we were able to step in and help her. So we could take, because of the way we're structured and because of our technology, we were able to literally step in and run her franchise for her while she dealt with the emotional side of it all, the court visits, and then what ultimately led to giving birth to a daughter. Now, through that whole experience, she was incredibly strong, and turned to us for a lot of support. And I think a lot of people at that age would have just walked away from everything, because she was going through an awful lot, and it didn't stop. So even when the courts got involved, it got very nasty, and she had to move house, and it was just very difficult for her. But because of the way we were structured, because we were there, we were able to help her. And her business, after everything settled down, her business has just grown. She's just gone from strength to strength, because she went through so much pain. She learned from it, she developed, she grew as a person. And that for me is one of the most inspirational things that I've seen, particularly, within our own network, where you kind of go, this is what franchising is all about.
Yeah.
No matter what an individual goes through, there is somebody there to help them, hold their hand, run the business for them if necessary. And I just think that's really cool that she's come out the other side of it.
Yeah, it's great to hear that was possible and that it happened for her. But
Yeah.
I guess there's going to be skeptical people out there maybe that think, why is the franchisor doing it? Why not just go, oh well, it's your own business, get on with it. So I think I know the answer, but why do you
Well,
think that is? Why do you think the franchisor stepped in to help out?
well, because you're all in it together. And I mean, to break it down to its absolute base part, if a franchise isn't earning and generating income, we're not generating income. The franchisor's not earning. So at its base level, that's what it's about. But no, I mean, it's much more than that, because as a franchisor, you want every franchisee to succeed. You don't want any failures within your network. You will bend over backwards to help somebody. And at the end of the day, it's an individual who's in distress, who's invested their money, time and effort into your business model, and you should be there to help them.
So it's all about just being human then, really, isn't it? And I think I'm experiencing it myself. The more I speak to franchisors around the industry, the more I realize that it's not these big corporate companies, and they're not just in it for the money. They're actually human beings who care a great deal and probably put themselves under too much stress and strain to help their franchisees. And you're right, it's really inspiring to be around, actually.
It is, I think so.
Yeah. So in terms of what you do today, then working with Swimtime, what is it that you're actually doing within the franchise, and how are you supporting franchisees?
Well, I work really closely with the franchisee, so I'm the point of contact for pretty much everything. And my main role is to make sure that they are successful. So it could be anything from as if there were a customer complaint or an unhappy customer, I can get involved if I needed to. If there's additional training that somebody requires, then I can help with that. If they get to, a great example is one of our franchisees, their business has grown so much that they actually now are looking to employ a manager, which would be the first time one of our franchisees have done it. So they said to me, how do I structure this? What do I need to do? What things do I need to consider? So I work with them on that type. So I guess that's where my consultancy background kicks in, because I look at each franchisee individually in their own right and help them get their business to where it needs to be. And so that's on the franchisee day-to-day side. And then on the other sort of broader Swimtime operational side, it's everything from trying to negotiate national contracts to keeping up with the health and safety regulations to it's just so varied, which is one of the reasons I love it.
I think the thing that's really important though, that kind of thing. So if you're not doing it on behalf of all the franchisees, finding out the new health and safety regulations or whatever kind of new thing, legal requirement a business has, they got to do it themselves, right? Whereas when you're in the franchise, someone else has done that for you, and you just have to
absolutely,
I don't know, put the sign up outside the door or incorporate it into your emails, whatever it may be. It's a lot easier, isn't it?
It is. I mean, COVID's a great example. As soon as the first announcement came about, we as franchisors thought, God, the franchisees are going to be absolutely, beside themselves with worry as to what's going to happen. Let's remove as much pressure as we can. So we've dealt with a lot of the comms centrally ourselves. We've dealt with all the system side of it. We've dealt with a lot of the financial side of it. We've fed the franchisees information about the various grants and funding CBILS that's been available. So it saves them going off and having to research it, 20 odd times over. At least they get a consistent message from us. And if they've got questions, we've usually researched it with an inch of its life, and we will know the answer. So it's very, very powerful when things go wrong.
Yeah, and I guess you've got the benefit of seeing what impacts this may be having across multiple businesses that are the same, essentially, right? Whereas if you're an independent business owner, you've only got your own experience to go off of. It's that collective experience and knowledge collected by one source and then refined and then distributed across all of those businesses, which is it's really useful. It's the more you look into franchise and the more these little things crop up and you go, actually, that's really valuable. And that's what you're buying into, regardless of which brand you're looking at generally.
Absolutely.
So with COVID perhaps not going away completely in the future, and we was talking about it earlier that maybe I'm the most pessimistic optimist out there, but I'm not sure it's gonna disappear. I think we're gonna have to learn to live with it. So
absolutely,
what kind of plans or strategies have you got in place to deal with that in the future?
Well, we've literally come off a call with our franchisees this morning where I said to them that the landscape has changed again, and it's going to change. It's not going to revert back to what it was. So we need to go right back down to basics. Relook at your business plan, look at competitors, look at the trends of the marketplace, look at the ONS data. Let's look at what's happening in the wider economy. What are people's appetite for getting going again? And I've said to them that I'll be in touch with them in the next couple of weeks to actually walk through individually their own plans in terms of what they need to do to maximise the opportunity to make sure that they come out of this strong and that they've got everything in place that they need to have. It's going to be challenging because even though we've got dates, anything else can happen in the meantime. And as we've experienced already, it could change. But recognizing that the landscape is not going to be the same is half our battle. So understanding what legislation is still going to be in place in terms of the COVID guidelines, that's obviously crucial to us because it impacts on the numbers of people that we can have in a venue at any one time, which obviously impacts on our income. So it's trying to maximise that and balance it with pool space, but also teacher availability, customer expectation. I mean, the last just before we locked down, we had waiting lists with literally hundreds and hundreds of people on because we've no space to accommodate them.
Yeah.
So it's trying to avoid, what can we do to avoid that going forward? Where can we source more pool space? So it's helping them do the absolute proper day-to-day basic stuff, get that all in place so that they're in a good position going forward.
I guess if COVID becomes a seasonal flu type thing, maybe the business becomes some form of seasonal business almost, couldn't it? And that's good that you're doing the work to investigate and identify the ways that can become a sustainable model. And yeah, I guess every business is finding a way to adapt, right? We've all talked about pivoting, but now it's all about adapting, isn't it? And making it work in the long term, whatever comes up. So I guess you're part of the team that's doing that for them, so they don't have to worry about it, which is great. It's great. I had a couple of questions actually about the franchisees that you tend to look for and take on board, because I realized perhaps people don't know how to find these franchise brands, right? So where do you generally advertise for franchisees? Where do you advertise and try and find people that are suitable? And what do those people look like? What do you look for in a franchisee?
So in terms of advertising, it's multiple. So we've got our own website, Facebook page, LinkedIn. And then in terms of paid advertising, what franchise local, and point franchise. They're our main sources of leads. But we also tend to get a lot of referrals through our teacher network. So teachers that come and work with us. We've got 3 franchisees now who have come to us through our own swim teaching network.
Okay.
So that's how we tend to find them. And so what was the other part of the question? The skills and what we look for.
What do you tend to look for? But actually, it's quite interesting. I guess that's if somebody wanted to find out more about swim time and there's this local swim time class, go there and speak to the teacher. How can they get into this? Maybe.
Yeah, well, you can do. I mean, that's one way of doing it. There's a lot of information on our website as well. But in terms of what we look for, you don't have to be a qualified swim teacher. You do, however, need to be passionate about delivering a service that is a life skill. It impacts on the community. It has a very positive impact on the NHS, mental and physical well-being. It has a key part to play in our wider community. So if you're passionate about that and you've got some business acumen, you don't need to have stacks because we can teach you that. But also our systems, our software is so good that it does a lot of the donkey work for you. And it creates a fantastic customer experience from end to end. So the customer has a great experience just on the booking journey. They turn up for their lesson and they have a really high standard of lesson delivered. And then in terms of all the other business aspects from a marketing and a financial point of view, a lot of it is there through our software. A lot of the marketing we do centrally anyway, so that we've got consistency of messaging, consistency of brand. So it's really about somebody who's got that drive, enthusiasm, wants to run their own business, but wants to do it recognizing that there's massive benefits having support and not trying to go out there and do it by yourself because it's hard, really hard.
Follow the model. You hear it a lot around franchising, right? But do you ever turn people away who are interested in buying and they've got the money, they're ready to go?
Yeah, no, in terms of turning people away, I usually identify that quite early on in the process. quite recently, there was a guy came to us, and the more we got chatting, granted online, but the more we got chatting, the more I realised that he was a true entrepreneur. And for a true entrepreneur to be put in a box, that ain't going to work. He's going to want to recreate the model, refine the model, because that's naturally how he was wired. And so I said to him, look, you know, I would love to have you on board because you've got energy, drive, enthusiasm, all the things that we look for. But I said, I think 3 years down the line, you are going to be bored silly, because you're going to keep coming to me saying, well, I'd like to do it this way. And I'll be going, that's not the model. That's not the way we do it. But I want to do it this way because it will work. No. So we parted company on good terms. So yeah, do turn people down, because it has to be the right fit. Otherwise, it's a waste of both our time and money. There's no point trying to force an issue or force a relationship like that when it's not going to work.
Yeah, that's good. It's the ethical way to do it, right? Rather than just,
yeah,
because you're not making money, I guess, ultimately from the franchise sales. So it's got to be this win-win scenario that we were talking about earlier that you've got to try and find. And if it doesn't look like it's going to work for one party or the other, then it's not going to work in the long run, is it? So yeah, no, that's good to hear. I think we're coming to the end of the time now. So final question I wanted to ask you was, if you could give somebody who's listening to this, who's thinking about maybe buying into a franchise business, one piece of advice, what would that be?
Do your research. So look at the British Franchise Association, look at their webpage. They offer a prospective franchisee certificate. It's free online. Put yourself through that, and then you will know whether or not you are potential franchisee material, because not everyone is. And I think the sooner you can learn that, the better. And other aspects of research would be research all the franchises that are out there, look at various sectors, look at what they offer, and match to what's important to you as an individual. What are your own values? What's your own ethos? What's important to you to achieve in business and in your personal life? What's that balance look like? And where's the greatest fit to a franchise?
Perfect. Rachel, thank you very much for your time. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for sharing your thoughts and insights to everybody listening.
You're very welcome. I've enjoyed it. Cheers for your time too, Ed.
No worries. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye.